Sexology, Part 2. The Mother and the Child. The expectant mother should not be considered as an invalid. To be with child is a natural, physiological process, the fulfilling of the divine mandate and the highest crowning act of womanhood. Yet the state of pregnancy is one involving the most delicate and highly sensitive organism and requires careful consideration both from the standpoint of the woman herself and the new life which she is bringing into being. Prenatal influences and education are of vast importance, yet they are greatly neglected and persistently misunderstood. Those who would have healthy children must be themselves healthy. They must obey the laws of nature and morality. They must not expect good fruit from poor soil. Physical strength, good organization, agreeable temper, and nobleness of mind beget their like. Drunkenness, debility, debasement of body and mind yield similar characteristics in progeny. Children who inherit the former start from the highest vantage ground. Children with the latter start in the race of life handicapped and at a great disadvantage. Pregnancy. Signs of pregnancy. The natural question of the expectant mother is as to how pregnancy manifests itself. The following are usual and predominating signs. Cessation of menstruation. Other causes may be suspend the menstrual flow, and not only so, but in some cases the menstrual flow is not suspended during first month or so of pregnancy. But it is usually true that this is a reliable sign, especially if menstruation has previously been regular. The missing of 2 successive periods, however, may be taken as a sign. 2. Changes in the breasts. If the menstrual flow has been suspended, and at the same time there are unusual sensations in the breasts, such as tenderness to pressure, stinging, prickling, and so forth, these may be accepted as further indication that pregnancy exists. 3. Morning sickness. This is especially noticeable in the first pregnancy. Usually on rising there is considerable nausea, which may or may not be accompanied by vomiting. Occasionally this nausea occurs in the evening instead of the morning. 4. Disturbances in urination. In the early period of pregnancy, there is often desire to frequently empty the bladder, and there are sometimes other annoying symptoms. These usually are due to pressure of the growing womb against the bladder and generally disappear after a few weeks. 5. Quickening. This is the movement of the child in the womb and is usually felt about the 16th to the 18th week. This as a rule may be accepted as conclusive that pregnancy exists. index for special table, which will be found interesting. However, to roughly estimate, the simplest rule is to count forward 280 days from the beginning of the last menstrual flow, thus allowing 7 days for the menstrual period, or what amounts to the same thing, count backwards 85 days, or possibly still more. Easy, count back 3 months and add 7 days. It will seldom occur that the exact date will be thus arrived at. Some will occur a few days earlier and some a few days later, but it is nevertheless a good general rule. Example, if the last menstruation began on the 30th of September, count back 3 months to 30 July and add 7 days, giving the date of expected birth as 7th of July. 7th of July. By consulting the general index and looking under the respective subheadings, there will be found full information in the matters on conception, pregnancy, labor, and other relative subjects. But it is essential in this chapter to call attention to the special care which the condition of pregnancy demands. From the earliest moment of conception, more than usual care should be taken as to general health, clothing, baths, diets, and so forth. Therefore, we shall here treat briefly as to such things as are most vitally exigent during pregnancy. Personal hygiene during pregnancy. Clothing should be loose and comfortable and adapted to the gradual development of the abdomen and the breasts. Tight lacing is injurious to both mother and child and should be carefully avoided. It gives rise to disorders of the stomach and liver and may cause uterine hemorrhage and abortion. The clothing should be sufficiently warm to protect against cold, and the feet should be especially guarded in such regard. In winter or in cold and damp seasons, a flannel bandage or roller around the abdomen will prove a valuable protection. The ordinary corset should be discarded early in pregnancy. There are models which are intended for the woman during this period, and unless the expectant mother decides to do without wearing corsets at all, she will find it well for her own comfort and also for the welfare of the coming child to provide herself with corsets especially adapted to the needs of pregnancy. Too much care cannot be taken not to let the feet become damp, and not only should the feet be properly protected in such regard, but special care should be exercised that the shoes worn are comfortable. exercise. All kinds of harsh or agitating exercise should be avoided, such as riding rapidly in a carriage over rough roads, horseback riding, lifting or carrying heavy loads, in short, anything that may jar or strain. But short, gentle, and frequent walks should be taken throughout the whole period of pregnancy, and much of the time should be spent in the open air with mild exercise and occupation. And in this way, the general health be kept in proper tone. The growing fetus be nourished and strengthened, and foundation laid for an easy labor and a good getting up. It is the abundance of air and occupation that largely explains the rapid labors and speedy recoveries of poor women. They are obliged to work, but in their very toil they are favoring nature's operations, and their compensation is an easy confinement unattended by much inconvenience or anxiety. Indolence during pregnancy is unnerving to mother and fetus. Rest. A pregnant woman should retire early to rest, at least by 10 o'clock, and be up in good time in the morning for her ablution. Morning stroll in seasonable weather and an early breakfast. She should use every means in her power to make and keep herself healthy, not only for the sake of herself and her husband, but also for the sake of the forming child within her and the welfare of humanity. Fresh air and ventilation. Fresh air is needed by everyone. It is indispensable to health. It is especially essential to the pregnant woman. Where circumstances and weather permit, there is nothing better for her than to sleep out of doors. Where this is not possible, she should sleep with windows and doors so arranged as to give the maximum of ventilation, having due regard that there shall be no drafts. Not only is this necessary as regards the sleeping room, but it is also just as essential that the living rooms of the house should be thoroughly and properly ventilated. The windows in all occupied rooms of the house should be thrown wide open at different times of the day, even in cold weather, that fresh air may enter. Unchanged air is unfit for the human lungs, and it is especially harmful to the pregnant woman. Baths and care of the skin. These are very important matters. While the skin should be kept in good condition at all times, it is especially necessary during pregnancy, as at this time the work of all the excretory organs is increased, and the skin is one of the most important of these organs. It contains millions of pores, which provide outlet for the waste material thrown off by the sweat glands. In a healthy person, about a pint of water is each day eliminated through these pores, carrying with it various waste material. If the pores become clogged, the waste products are kept in the blood until they bladders must be kept open, the skin generally in healthy condition, and circulation stimulated. And this can be attained by washing the entire body thoroughly every day, followed by good towel friction. Shower tub or sponge bath may be used, and while the body is still wet, should be briskly rubbed with a rough towel. A morning bath is recommended in most cases, as it is usually more effective and there is less danger of catching cold if the water is cool. Cold baths are not to be recommended as a rule, though if a woman has been accustomed to a cold morning plunge, it is sometimes permissible to continue it during pregnancy, provided she gets into a healthy glow by brisk rubbing immediately afterward and that the shock is not too great. However, as a general rule, it is recommended that at this time the chill should be taken from the water. In addition to this daily cool bath, the pregnant woman should take either 2 or 3 warm baths each week, using plenty of soap, as these are necessary for the thorough cleansing of the skin. These warm baths should be taken at night just before retiring. Hot baths are sometimes beneficial and give rest, but the pregnant woman should avoid taking hot baths at the time of the normal menstrual flow, and at no time during pregnancy should the hot bath be taken frequently. Both in respect of hot baths and very cold baths, much discrimination is necessary during the pregnancy, it being safer as a rule to confine the baths to the daily cool, not cold bath at the bi-weekly warm bath. Diet. A due amount of care should be given to diet. Meat should be eaten, but only once a day. Rich soups and highly seasoned foods avoided, and all alcoholic stimulants strictly shunned. During these earlier stages of pregnancy, rather less should be eaten than at ordinary times, for although it is true that 2 have to be nourished instead of 1, yet there is less drain upon the system because the expectant mother is no longer unwell and the fetus up to the 3rd month is not much larger than an egg. An overloaded stomach favors the distressing nausea and morning sickness of early pregnancy. During the latter months of pregnancy, however, the diet should be fuller, for if it to be light, it is likely to make the mother a poor nurse for her child, both in the quantity and the quality of her milk. Condition of the bowels. Almost all women suffer from greater or less constipation teaspoonful of soda, 1 small teaspoonful of salt, 1 pint of sour milk or buttermilk, 1 quart of bran, 1 pint of flour. Stir well and bake for 1 hour in a very slow oven. Very slow oven. It may be baked in loaf form or as a bran biscuit or gem as may be preferred. This bran bread may be eaten freely every day, and if persisted in, is almost certain to give favorable results. Do not bake too much at one time, as it becomes quickly hard, whereas it should be eaten moist and tender. Fresh vegetables are wholesome at this time, and if eaten with olive oil are laxative. Onions, asparagus, tomatoes, peas, spinach, and practically all vegetables are recommended, but some of them, such as cabbages, radishes, etc., are not readily digested. And when this is found to be the case in respect of any vegetable or other article of food, the same should be eliminated from the diet. Different people are affected differently in this regard. If constipation is not relieved by diet, the old and well-known remedy of senna may be tried. One good recipe is that for senna prunes, an ounce of senna leaves is put in a jar and a quart of boiling water poured over them. Let them stand 2 hours, then strain, and to the liquid add a pound of well-washed prunes, and let soak overnight. Then cook in the same water until tender, sweetening with 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. The syrup and the fruit are both laxative. Commence with half a dozen prunes with syrup at night, and increase or decrease the quantity as may be found advisable. Another receipt is the following. Remove the stones from a pound of dried prunes and mix them with a pound of good dried figs. First, having thoroughly washed the prunes, run the mixture through a meat chopper, adding 2 ounces of finely powdered senna leaves. Stir this mixture with 2 tablespoonfuls of molasses. This makes a thick paste. Commence at bedtime by eating about 3 good tablespoons of increase or decrease on the following nights of may be deemed expedient. The paste should be kept covered in a glass jar and in a cool place. If the senna is unpalatable, commence with a smaller quantity and gradually increase. If constipation continues in spite of these measures, it will be well to consult the family physician before resorting to purgatives. Enemas are sometimes helpful, but their regular employment is not advised.